Welcome to Kindred, hosted by me, Kate, and my sister, Jen. In this podcast, we explore our human relationship to animals and nature. The abrupt human disconnect created by the pandemic, like for many of us, turned my world and business, Otis and Rude dog collars, upside down. But it also emphasized the critical need in myself and others to reconnect to animals and nature for our overall well-being.
Join us every week as we interview scientists, conservationists, animal advocates, authors, and many others.
In connecting to our world, we also connect to compassion, empathy, and understanding. How can we see ourselves as not separate from animals and nature, but as a part of an active ecosystem? Welcome to Kindred. How is everybody? And ready? Clap. Nope. You didn't clap.
I didn't feel like it.
That's a podcast thing. You're supposed to clap.
Only if you're in remote places, though. We're sitting right next to each other.
They didn't know that. We could have pretended we were at our fancy locations.
I'm just a little more authentic than that. I wasn't going to fake it. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
So authentic.
So authentic.
And not
authentic AF.
Yeah. So how is the world out there? We're good.
Yes.
Really interesting interview coming up. I loved it. We will get to who our special guests of the day are and momentarily. Please stand by though for our highlights today. I've got a couple things that I wanted to tell you guys about, and they are both podcasts. Ooh, podcasts talking about a podcast. I think that's a thing.
It is a thing
that I really like. The first one is a podcast called The Wild with Chris Morgan, and it's super good. I love it. He's outdoors photographer. He's, nature. I don't know. He works with bears. He's just done all kinds of stuff. He's got a great sense of humor. He has a very, there's a definite kindness to his way, the way he talks about animals and the way he connects to them. Super brave guy and is doing a lot of good stuff. So please check out The Wild with Chris Morgan. That's through KUOW. And you can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts as well. It's on Apple. That's where I listen to mine. And then the other one is a podcast called This Wild Life. It's a conservation podcast. And I believe the woman who does that is out of South Africa, and that is really conservation based, but she has a lot of really interesting conversations. The one I especially liked that I listened to after we talked with our very own, the Wolf Lady, Karen Vardaman, which is episode 3. So go back and listen to that. But she interviews a gentleman about wild dogs in Africa.
Cool.
And super interesting. She's just doing a lot of good stuff down there, so check her out. And also, guys, we are so grateful for all the support. It has been incredible. You are subscribing, you are rating, and you are reviewing, and it's making a difference.
Amazing.
And it's super fun. Yeah, it is amazing. So please keep doing that, and you can message us via email, which is thekindredpod@gmail.com. And please do email us. Let us know what you guys think. If you have any suggestions, any stories that you want us to share, and we will do that. The other is check out our website, which is kindredpodcast.co. That's got all our information. It's got all the links. It's got, we put links to all the highlights and who we refer to, who the guests refer to. And just, that's where our further resources are. And also just keep talking to people about the episodes that you love. We're hearing a lot of word of mouth stuff happening, which is really exciting because that's really where it's at.
Yeah.
For sure. That's how I find our podcasts that we love. So thanks so much for that. And can't tell you how grateful we are, because the more that the more people listen, the more people are going to be able to hear like the incredible conversation with Sterling Davis, the Trap King, and, Dr. Nichols with Blue Mind, and just everybody, like Nadia's talking about whales and all that cool stuff. So we've got another great interview today. We are talking about, we're talking to Isaac and Neal from Laughing Coyote. They are an organization that works primarily, or actually, I think exclusively, with children and young adults. You can go and you learn all kinds of outdoor living skills, and their website is called laughingcoyoteproject.org. You can find all the information that you need about them. They are located in the Denver, Colorado area. But such a good conversation, and just really like how they are focusing so much of what Kindred's been talking about this whole season.
Yeah, they live this 24/7,
24/7. Yeah. And then passing this on to kids in the most fun way.
Kate suggested that they maybe start to expand into adults. So maybe some of us people could go and learn these things. And
outdoor camp for adults.
That would be amazing.
I know there's lots of things like that, but I'd love to do it with them.
Yeah.
And because, full disclosure, Isaac is our nephew.
Yes.
He's an incredible human. He has been this way his entire life.
Yep, he's perfect. So
he is perfect. And Neal his energy was incredible.
Very good. Yeah, great conversation.
Yeah, super cute. So thanks for joining us, and let's head over to the interview.
Let's head over.
Hello, and welcome to Kindred Laughing Coyote. How are you guys today?
Great. Doing well. Yeah, thanks for having us. Yes.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So I just wanted to start with, just sort of the thought that I kind of feel that when that we are born with innate abilities to become deeply connected to animals and nature, but the adults in our world, our parents and their parents, who raised us have never learned how to unlock these instincts, so they're not being passed down from generation to generation. Animals, they teach their young from the moment they're born how to interact and survive and thrive as a species, but we do not. And it's why Kindred is so interested and curious to know about organizations like yours that seem to understand this lack and are working to pass along knowledge of how our natural world works with children and young adults. So, Neal, just to start with you, what is the mission of Laughing Coyote?
I mean, really at its core, what we're interested in is what is the fullest expression of being a human being connected to a landscape. And I think I've actually been thinking about this quite a bit recently. And as I kind of rattle off the little elevator two-liner, it's that question is actually super complex and layered. Like, what is a human being? We've from our origins to where we've spread around the world, there's been a lot of adaptation, our use of technologies from, a sharpened stick up into, a program we're using on the computer now are all relationships we've had to interact with the world. But really, how do we move our bodies while connected to a landscape? Where do we find food, shelter? How do we play? How are we engaged in the landscape? We just had this really hot week. So how do we push through discomfort and really revel in the experiences we can have in the natural world without having to always be concerned about comfort? We had an incredible week with all of these students at our summer camp last week, and it was, slightly over 100 degrees. And we were out in 100 degrees, ripping around playing capture the flag. And then right at the edge of heat stroke, we all jumped in the pond. But so that's really like, how do we just express our human nature, our animal nature? And I really believe that at least for me personally, and I think this is something many of us are seeking, is I think we really express that best when we're connected to landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And so, Isaac, why were you drawn to teach at Laughing Coyote?
Well, it was kind of an organic process of like, we started just doing things together because we enjoy doing the same things. And then it was like we kind of found a lot of similarities in ourselves, and just like, oh, this, it's, you find someone else who does the same thing as you, and it's just super fun to hang out with them, and when they know something or have done similar things. And so it was just kind of a process of being together and working on skills together. And then after a little bit, Neal just asked if I wanted to teach, and it wasn't really a question of like, oh, should I? It was like, well,
right.
Of course. Like,
yeah, right.
We love spending time together and doing the same thing. So it was kind of just like the obvious next step of like being able to teach and learn, and being able to teach someone else something that I've just learned, and then kind of internalize that and have that be kind of the process of, very quickly learning it and then passing it on, sometimes even in the same day. Of like, so yeah, it was, it wasn't so much of a thought process. It was just kind of happened naturally, which was really cool.
Yeah, Isaac, that's awesome. I love that, and it makes total sense. And then back to you, Neal. You kind of touched on this, what you were saying before, but I kind of want to dive deeper into like, how is creativity in us like born from our environment? Like, do the challenges of living off the land force us to be more creative and connect us deeper to our human side, you think?
So I'm going to just preface this by saying that I'm really a gut feeling kind of person. So a lot of answers to the questions like this are ideas that I've mulled over a lot, and I think very deeply about it. Is there a scientific study to back this up? I have no idea. So I'm just going to throw that out there. This is just based on my experience.
I love it. We're actually not scientists, so this works well for us.
Cool. Great.
Let's do it.
I do love reading scientific studies that confirm my beliefs, and then I kind of forget all the science.
Right.
Totally. Yeah. It's like, but it's nice to know there is science that backs it up.
I do love it, and then I forget what is it called again? Yeah.
So I would say I think there's a few facets to this. First is, we live in the same body that our ancestors had. Human beings physically have changed very little. There have been a couple of slight adaptations, like adults being able to digest milk, is a more recent adaptation. But in essence, our bodies are the same that they've been for, 200, 300,000 years. I believe that so many of the activities and processes we go through in a day relate to things that our bodies have always done. It's just shifted. And so when we get into the world of primitive skills or creating tools and experiences, food, whatever it is we need from the landscape, we remove all those separating layers and go directly to the source of what our bodies have evolved to do. So for example, like when we have a group of students sitting in a circle, everybody's fiddling with something. Everybody picks up a piece of grass or a stick or a leaf and then just commences to shred it. Or tie it into knots or whatever. And you look in a circle and almost nobody is sitting still, including myself. I'll be speaking and just ripping apart leaves, right? Like it's just this, we all do it. When we teach students a skill like cordage, where you take plant fibers and with your fingers twist them into a strong, functional, and usable string, suddenly you look in that circle, and when everybody's fidgeting, they're making cordage.
Interesting.
And I think that if you were to time travel into the past and sit around, at a point when string making technology had been discovered, probably everyone's sitting around. And if you're not doing anything else, you're probably making cordage or, sharpening a stone arrowhead or shaping a bone needle or straightening a shaft for an arrow or a hand drill spindle. So I think the first key to this creativity piece is that when we get to natural processes, we have removed any separation from our evolutionary history into our body's experience in the present. So I think that's the first one. The second piece is when we're in nature, it is so complex. I mean, it's beyond our comprehension complex. I was thinking about it today. I was out doing chores on the farm here, and we have a lot of Russian olives on our farm, which is an invasive species to this area. We just happen to be lucky enough to have a bunch of them on our farm, which is a whole deal that I'm working through, mitigating that.
Interesting.
But many of these trees, I mean, we probably have over 10,000 of them would be my guess. Many of them I recognize as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
I've cut limbs off these trees. I've climbed them. I've hidden behind them. I've tied things to them, whatever it is. And then I came back to the house and I thought, I wonder if I could draw a single one of those trees. And I don't know that I could. I probably recognize on sight over 100 individual trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I could draw any of them because it's too complex. When I go out on the landscape and I'm looking at milkweed, I can identify all these individual milkweed plants. But each one at its core, just like a human being or any other natural creation, is in itself totally unique in the world. And so I think when we spend a lot of time in the natural world, we are exposed to a complexity that we begin to sort and have relationships with. But still that complexity is so far beyond our imagination. I mean, every day I go out there, I see a bug I've never seen before in my life. I've seen a leaf from a plant of a species I don't know. And my job is to know these things. So then I think when you take our evolutionary history with primitive skills and the complexity of the natural world, and then I go out and I say, okay, now I'm going to make a shelter. I have to take the principles of what I need a shelter to do, whether it's to keep me dry, keep me warm, block wind. I'm working with shapes that I have actually never seen before because every single stick, twig, leaf is unlike any other. And I think between these various components, it fosters creativity on the landscape in a profound way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, wow, so my brain is rewiring right now as you're talking. So it's like the getting creative, it's almost like it's natural for us to connect to our environment that we're living in this way that we're sitting around. This is fascinating. Sitting around with a bunch of grass, and suddenly we're making chords. We're doing braiding and all that kind of stuff. And then it translates to, now I need to sleep in a safe place. I need to build my little fort. So then it's then identifying what you need to use that. And then the creative part comes, okay, how do I put this all together to make that work? And I feel like that must be something you need to do more than once to be able to do that in a survival mode as well. Is that making sense? Like, I just find this fascinating.
Yeah. And I think also, like, the fact is, it's not like when you get your IKEA bed that you have 17 screws that are the same size. You're looking at branches. It's like, oh, that one's a little thick. That one's too bent. That one's too short. You have to you have to improvise,
right?
Because, like you said, none of them are the same. So you have to get you have to use your creativity and your intellect to, like, well, that's the best one that's available to me right now. But if you make a shelter in 6 weeks, it might look a little bit different because everything's a little different. So,
but you're saying too that we are set up to know how to figure this out.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of this is, there's certain skills, like we'll teach a project or a skill in a somewhat didactic manner where your bow drill spindle needs to be this long, this thick, this straight. These are the best materials. But really, as you form relationships with these processes, you go to the point of principles where you understand things like friction, speed, pressure, tension, thermodynamics, and whether or not you know the names or could describe it with the actual physical properties, you begin to have this relationship with first principles. So when I go to build a shelter, what are my needs in this moment? And what are my needs for this shelter? If I'm going to be there for a night, sometimes it'll be, we'll scrape together a pile of leaves, you crawl in there, and then you move on. If you're going to be there for 2 weeks, you've completely changed the whole relationship. And so location, time of year, your goals in that particular project, it all compounds itself. But I would say the relationship to complexity in the landscape, and then understanding sort of first principles, those combined, then you go out with a specific need or question on the landscape, and then you answer it. And that's where I think that play of narrowing down to those core principles, and then going into this highly complex environment, the marriage between the two, that's like that sweet spot of creativity.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And, in a previous episode, and if you guys haven't heard this, go to episode 1 with Charlotte Fearson, the archaeologist. She talked about how she believes we used to be smarter because 50 to 100,000 years ago, we had to do this kind of stuff day in and day out. And that's where it's like you are passing that knowledge on to your kids like they used to do. I mean, you were saying 200 to 300,000 years ago. It's getting passed down, and we did used to be smarter in some ways because
more creative
and more intelligent, and then because it is like a survival thing, but it's a flourishing thing too. It's back to that a species doesn't want to just survive; they want to flourish and do well and be healthy. But that's really fascinating. So, Isaac, how does this connect to you? What's your experience with this?
Well, I've seen just like the creativity of things, just like, it's cool to see, other people, like when you have a group of people and you're like, okay, we're going to make, like spoons or something that's like pretty simple. You have a bowl and a handle. But then, depending on which piece of wood they get, or what they have kind of in mind of like that idea, or maybe they go into it without an idea at all and just kind of see what the wood dictates. But just that you're all making a spoon and it's generally all within 6 inches long, and it's pretty simple. But just depending on which piece of wood or where the knots are in the wood or just the grain of it, they all end up being super different. Just like just with what wood you have to go in different directions and to kind of look at it in a creative way of thinking, oh, how can I incorporate this? Or this knot will weaken the handle, so I have to put it here instead of right on the edge where then your spoon handle is too thin there. So like working with these different things, or even just like the shelter idea of you pick up these sticks and some have little knots or Y's on it in places, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can put this little rack here and hang things and build a fire here, and all of a sudden I have a drying rack for my clothes as part of my shelter. And like,
I'm gonna hang my towel there in my bathroom that I just built,
exactly. And like these things that when you started you never envisioned this, but then kind of through working with the different materials, and you're like, oh, and here's this other stick that actually has like little hooks on it, and I'll make this rack over here. And so it just kind of builds on itself. And with working with the material, it's kind of just a dialogue almost between you and the material of where it goes, and just learning to read that, of like, and understanding what to do with certain things like knots in wood or weak spots in certain plants. Over time, you kind of learn how to use those to your advantage. And yeah, to see what you're holding and kind of what it can become.
I like that. I like how you said dialogue. You're having a dialogue. It actually is a conversation. Like, what are you? What do I need? What do I have? And how are you going to work? Or how can I make you work? And knowing like what, again, like practice, and knowing what wood works better for different things. So that makes me think too about when I last talked to you guys, Neal, that you kind of sparked this idea, and I went like searching. I was like, this has to be a quote out there, but I couldn't find it. And our brother, who's a writer and a lit person, he's super smart. He's like, no, there's no quote. Anyway, so we've created a new brilliant quote, but it really is the idea that knowledge without participation is useless, right? So so this is how interaction and interplay with the environment can build confidence in children. Like, it connects them in a different way. And how does it build a deeper connection?
I mean, at the core, this is what's so interesting right now. This is such an amazing moment in the world because information is so accessible.
Right.
And I mean, I love that. I love being able to ask Mr. Google a question and find out just crazy things that is just so cool that we have access to so much information. And I'm kind of an information hog. I have a book diet because if I'm not careful, I just collect books on, things like that. And so that to me is such a special moment we're in that I can access information from people in Africa, Europe, Asia, South America, Southeast Asia, all over the place, whether it's through social media, whether it's through the internet, whether it's through books, music, all of these things. We're in this moment where information is so easy.
Yeah. What's
so interesting is that integrating information into any practical or I would say any sort of visceral experience has become increasingly difficult. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how many students we come out here saying things like, I know how to make fire because they've watched a bunch of YouTube videos.
Right.
And then you have a day that it's relatively dry and easy to make fire. And you're like, here's some matches, and they can't make a fire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Because it's that, that integration of knowledge into experience that is, I think that's something that it's something that Laughing Coyote we're really excited about sharing with students. And it's something I would say in our broader educational system is something we're losing more and more and more of. All of the shop programs, the music programs, all these things are starting to be pulled out of schools instead of, in favor of STEM curriculum. Whatever. I'm not super interested in the political side of that, but right. I do think that, but it's this idea of what is our actual experience. What's so cool about working with kids is that, again, they come into the world expecting, I don't know if what the intention is, but as though they are entering into our Stone Age past. Right. And then it's like, whoa, what's going on here? This is a little different. You get a bunch of 5-year-olds together, and like last week at camp, they weren't 5, they were 8 to 12. But I said, we're going to build a shelter. None of them used the word shelter all week. We were building a fort, right? Mm. Every kid wants to build forts, and they don't care if it's blankets, sticks, boards, old car tires, right? Whatever it is, we build forts. Right. Because we have always done this. Mm-hmm. I have a friend who teaches flint knapping, which is taking stones and making tools. And he'll go to a group of students, kids, and he'll say, who has ever smashed open a rock to see what's on the inside? And all of them will raise their hand.
Interesting.
And then he'll say to them, how many of you have cut yourself on a sharp piece after you've done that? And most of them will raise their hand, because this process of bashing open rocks is something that we've always done. And so again, and then I would say what's so exciting about being a human being is then when you also integrate play and playfulness into all of this, because all animals learn through play. And then most animals at a certain point stop playing. And because as human beings, we have figured out how to have this huge excess of calories, we can keep playing. And so we can keep learning and forming relationships in a playful manner that then we can learn, social interactions. We can develop our bodies physically, and we can integrate or gather information from our landscape through playing. It's amazing how many times we'll play a game with students and we'll say, all right, now everybody has to go hide and then be quiet. And then at a certain point, you're going to sneak up on me. And they all do it. And then at a certain point, someone's like, oh my God, there was this spider building a web. It was so cool. Or, oh, I was hiding in this tree and I saw a bird's nest. If we said, okay, everybody, go find a spider building a web. Like, do we have to? I don't know, like whatever it is. And so integrating into the game, again, gives us this meaning, this purpose to really eat up the landscape and all the information that it provides for us.
I love that. And it's exactly, it is that way. It's the fun way to learn. And you guys had talked about too, you said you set up a game playing tag, and you're like, okay, we're going to play tag, but by the time you get to home base or whatever, you've got to have 4 different types of plants in your hand. And just the idea of like, it just makes it so much more challenging. And then it takes to a different level, right? Because the human brain is ready to learn, like you're saying, through the play, through it goes from, I'm just going to smash rocks, but now I'm actually playing a game, and now I'm foraging and I'm finding, and it's just a totally different way to learn. And that's when I think, it's not about school is bad and classrooms bad, but it is that way of like the interaction. You just remember it. You won't ever forget that, because you've actually, your whole body, put it totally into experience. So you feel more connected to yourself and nature and animals through your work and life. But what about other people? Do you feel more or less connected to other human beings because of this? Like, what insight does this way of life for you give you into your fellow human?
Just that, like, I feel like partly through the experience of having like done this, where you take a group and you play with them and you do all these things, you crawl through the pond with them and all these things, you really definitely get kind of an understanding. But also, like, even if we just have a group out for a day and we kind of run them through, like we work on a fire challenge and we play games, like we start up the day with a game or something. And it's like, of course, you've all done a little small talk before and like introduce yourselves, but you still don't know anyone. But all of a sudden, like when you're in that moment of like hot pursuit, somebody's running, there's like a time limit or like all these things, you really get to see that kind of that inner personality of people. And like when they run, or it's like, oh, I can't, it's like, it's not safe yet. Or it's like kind of, you really see that internal dialogue in how they play the game. And just like, just playing a game with somebody really kind of highlights a lot of who they are. And sometimes people who you really didn't expect will be like super gutsy and just go at moments that you wouldn't go in, and they make it, they run and they like win amazingly or something like that. And it's just really cool just in a game to see that in people. And it really feels like you get to see their personality played out in a game. And also just like through experiences of doing things with people, you just connect with them. And it's just so simple, especially when it's like, I may have never met you, but we have 10 minutes and we have to build this or get across this obstacle. You're just going to jump into it instead of like feeling bashful about it.
What about you, Neal?
Yeah, I think, again, when we look at our evolutionary history, when we look at hunter-gatherer groups, non-industrial groups, they live in very closely knit, smaller clans, bands, tribes than we have these superficial relationships with hundreds of people potentially. But we're not really designed to have close relationships with that many people. So I think that, there are certain activities that when you participate in them, I call it often a transformational experience, but it's often when there is something awakened within yourself while something is being awakened within somebody else. And so you form these tight-knit bonds that are related to an experience. And so even then when you part ways, and that's kind of the double-edged sword of some of the work we do, where we might take a group for a week or 2 weeks on an expedition. And when you leave, you have the sense of grief because you have gone into this immersive crucible of an experience together where everybody has grown. And then you're going back to less filtered relationships or more filtered relationships from this place where you just had this much more raw experience. But then it's really cool because you begin to when you touch into those people again, that feeling, that relationship maintains a lot of its power. So yeah, I find that through our work with primitive skills, and then there's other activities that I would say I participate in that are not specifically primitive skills related, but when you've gone down that rabbit hole with somebody, you forge a very strong connection. And so it does make, it's the whole small talk thing, the whole superficial chit chat thing, becomes a little more difficult after you've been in the trenches and like just bared your soul. And so, I would say that when we've had these transformational experiences, you forge incredibly strong connections, that then you I'm not very good at maintaining things that aren't right in front of me, but then when you do check in, I spent a lot of time, a lot of the ways I've learned skills is by going to what are called primitive skills gatherings, where you'll go for a week. There might be 150, 200 people there, all learning new skills, sharing skills, and you, and that's, it kind of reminds me of probably tribes in the past would all come together in a central place, have a big gathering. Back then it was probably more about sharing mates or whatever than, who knows? That's probably still going on at gatherings like that. But a lot of it is about
it's a different podcast.
Yeah, right. But a lot of it is about the skills, and we'll form very strong connections with, every time we go to a gathering, you become very close with a handful of people. And then as you run into them at other gatherings or then go have experiences together, you form this really tight friendship relationship. And the issue with that model for me with a lot of my friendships is now they're spread all over the place. I have, very few of those folks geographically in similar places. But yeah, it's a little rambly here, but
no, not at all. I'm totally getting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where it's through experiences in nature, you go deep. And some of that's even like in the last couple of weeks, in addition to running summer camps, we've been putting up all of our hay for the winter. So we were, I was on the tractor cutting hay, raking hay. A neighbor of ours baled it for us. And then we got a crew together, and we threw bales onto a trailer, brought them back to the farm, stacked them, and did that for like a week and a half. We moved 45,000 pounds of hay. And it's that classic, like I was telling Isaac, it reminds me of Calvin and Hobbes, how his dad is always trying to trick him into doing these character building.
Yeah.
He's like, this is like one of my dad's character building things or whatever. And we were doing that classic character building activity that most people have, that activity is not necessary. And yet the relationship and connection we created of throwing these 50-pound bales to each other, moving across the landscape, suffering through the heat. And it was this powerful experience. Like we have our little hay crew, and that's going to become like a moment in time in my personal life biography. I'm going to remember who was there this week.
For sure.
Throwing bales with me, in the fire.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely.
And the more uncomfortable and difficult it is, the more that bond is forged a lot of times too, I feel like. Well, and also what you said, both of you talked about, you don't have to do the chit chat and the small talk. I think that's really, as human beings, what our desire is anyway, to skip that and go straight
Connect
to the heart of
immediately.
it. Yeah, just that's much more our preference. If we don't
Yeah.
have to,
Our species wants to connect right away,
yeah, much more.
for sure.
If we don't have to small talk, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, once in a while, I don't need to go deep, but yes. So
But just through a shared experience, it's much more enjoyable.
yeah. When you're running away from the tiger, you're going to be like, hey, so did you see there was a sale at Target?
Yeah,
Did you see that cute top?
exactly.
It's not what's happening. Yeah, it's great. And just love what you guys are offering, all this to kids, because it just really is that thing where Jane Goodall talks about this in her podcast called the Hopecast, and which is amazing. And she talks about how if you can't, people ask her, like, how do we convince adults? How do you convince an adult and change their mind and change their way? And she's like, well, sometimes you can't. So you just focus on the children. And she has this incredible program called, it's this international program called Roots and Shoots. And it's, her organization is funding and supporting programs all over the world, doing things like you guys are doing, and really unlocking and connecting young people to their environment where they live and the natural world. And I just think, because I really feel like by a certain age, it has either been educated out of us or feared into us, right? Like, you should be afraid of worms are gross. You should be afraid of mice, all these kind of different things. Like, we learn at a very young age. So I think what you guys are offering children and young adults is so critical to changing this whole movement on the planet and really getting more integrated to understand ourselves better, and it's just kind of fun too. There's just so much fun about it. Thanks guys so much for joining us today. It's been a super interesting conversation.
Mhm.
And hopefully we'll talk to you soon. And maybe you have like an adult week that, Jen and I can come, do some stuff out like you guys do.
Build some forts.
Build some forts.
Not shelters.
Definitely in the works.
Not shelters.
Definitely in the works.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, keep us posted.
Cool.
And again, thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Thank you as well.
Yeah, this is fun.
All right, guys, we are back with a takeaway with or about Laughing Coyote with Neal and Isaac. That was super interesting. I'm pretty obsessed with a lot of what they talked about,
Mhm.
and just the incredible work they're doing, and everything they were talking about was focused for children and young adults, which to me is so critical right now. It's where it's kind of at. And you had a really interesting insight about when he was talking about kids sitting around while you were talking.
Yes. Yeah. When he was saying how when kids sit around, you look around, they're all sitting there. They're either shredding leaves or pulling grass apart or picking it. And I flashed to, because I don't see groups of youths doing that. What I see is groups of kids sitting around scrolling on their phones. And it made me feel less judgmental of that.
Yeah.
Because it's the same desire. It's the same, again, that's their cavemen. And now what they have instead of grass available to them is they have this device in their hands.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be so, it just made me sort of feel like happy that it's just an innate desire to do something.
Yeah, maybe they're not just a bunch of trash kids on their phones. Like, get off your phones, kids. Like, why don't? But if we took them and put them in a field, in a circle,
I bet most of those kids could do that.
Of
it's
course.
just that it's not their experience.
Right. I really like that insight. I thought that was.
It made me feel less
hopeful.
of that going to hell in a handbasket idea that people my age can have about the youth today.
And again, it's about access.
Right.
What do we have access to as children?
Right.
But that's your whole point. It's like, if you're going to all sit around, you don't have grass to braid.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to be on
do
our phones.
something.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting too. I was thinking in terms of, like you saying, how powerful it is that they're working with the kids, and that idea that it's kind of, that's our best focus. Not that it's too late for adults, but I think a lot of adults could also, I was thinking, through their children doing this, regain the access to that too. And that a lot of times they teach us, and I thought that was kind of cool too, that if not only are you raising the next generation to be more innately connected to this, but also it can trickle over to the adults in their lives.
Yep, absolutely. And then, and the kids, and I think it is where it's at. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the actual interview, but we talked about Jane Goodall and her Hopecast that she's doing and her Roots and Shoots program,
that was cool.
which is incredible. And she's saying, if you can't win over the adults, then focus on the children. And that's what she's doing, because they're all going to be adults in 5 minutes, and then they will teach their kids. And like the animal kingdom, maybe we can do that too.
Yeah.
I was listening to this incredible episode on the podcast that I referred to in the intro, The Wild with Chris Morgan. He did this whole episode about orangutans. It's incredible, guys. Go listen to it. But he was saying that this orangutan, she's like 70 plus and had her third baby, maybe.
At 70?
Oh yeah. Crazy. Anyway,
I didn't know they reproduced that
I didn't either, but I think I got that right. She was very old as far as like whatever, but her one little youngster, and maybe it was later, but she would literally take this little one to basically daycare, and then she'd go sit 50 meters away, and she was there all day. But these little orangutans were teaching each other things, and they would spend hours. She was way over here if they needed anything, but they were watching orangutans teaching their children to do things, and that's what we need to do. And it's what we do, but we can do that better, and we can pass this along to the children. And I think that's where someone like, again, Jane Goodall Foundation and what their program is incredible. And then the last thing that you and I really liked too was that tribe idea. He was talking about how when you all get together and you have a great weekend for whatever you're doing, and then your psyches are thinking, oh, we're building tribe. This is my people. And then you go away and you're grieving. And it's really, again, just another sort of proof that like humans have to connect to each other on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be through animals or in nature, but it is a beautifully like organic way to do that. I think that's why people love camping, and they like to go walking in fields together.
Right.
And, Jay talked about that in episode 4, where, being by water connects us as humans.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yes.
Fun
Really,
talking with
really
them.
cool. Yeah.
And again, of course, we love Isaac because he's our nephew, but he's also an incredible person. And it was great to chat with Neal. Of such energy. Whoa, if I could have a little bit of his coffee, that would be great. So if you guys want to learn more about Laughing Coyote and their programs, you can find them online at laughingcoyoteproject.org. So check them out and see what they're doing. They've got camps, they've got workshops, and they are located in outside of the Denver area in Colorado. I do know that if you get online, there are other programs in your area. You'll be able to find this kind of organization doing this type of work. So check it out for not just your children, but for you too.
Yeah.
And see what you guys find. So we will see you next week. Lots of love.
Bye.
Kindred is hosted by me and my sister Jen. Produced by Kat Gaddy and myself. Sound production and editing by Dan Cooper. Original music by Ellie Grace. And our Kindred artwork was created by Lindsay Coffin. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And feel free to contact us through our website, kindredpodcast.co, where you can also find all our links to our socials and Patreon page.